Welcome to MSP 1337. I'm your host, Chris Johnson, a show dedicated to cybersecurity challenges, solutions, a journey together, not alone. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of MSP 1337. I'm joined this week by Ann Westerheim, and welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, CJ. Thank you so much for having me today.
So we started connected on the getting ready to do this, and you said a phrase that I have not heard, even though I've heard variations of it, taking cybersecurity seriously. And maybe I've heard it, but have ignored the phrase, kind of like saying, "Oh yeah, they're being sarcastic, they're being snarky," any number of things, because I think by and large, almost anybody we talk to, if you bring up cybersecurity, they're not saying that it's not a serious topic or something to be serious about. It's what you said is they just don't see it being that important to their little island or their little space in our ecosystem. Is that fair that it's not? I hate to say that people don't think it's serious.
I think people understand it's serious because they see the headlines and the big
Sure.
ramifications. But I think in specifically like MSPs dealing with smaller organizations, we're dealing with folks who just at some level think, okay, it's not going to happen to me. So a little bit about, human psychology, people after a flood, after a hurricane, people
Yeah.
think like, oh, I never thought this would happen to me. They're standing in front of their house totally destroyed. And I think that with cybersecurity and small business, it goes even a step further because I think that they don't even really believe it applies to them. That
Yeah.
around here in Massachusetts, it's we can get small tornadoes, but we're not going to get a tornado like they can get in the Midwest.
Like where I
Uh,
live in Iowa.
oh yeah. Oh, sorry to bring that up
Yeah.
this time of year.
Going to my basement.
Yeah. Okay. Record from there, and so I think in terms of taking it serious, like first you have to connect. So they have to connect that it applies to me. It applies to
Right.
everybody. And that's like one of my main missions, like the whole cybersecurity for Main Street, like getting people to think like this is not about government. It's not about only big companies like MJM and Target and
Sure.
large corporations, United Healthcare. This is really about every business. And then municipalities like water
Yeah.
supply, the electrical grid, it really does impact everybody. And I think we have to kind of push through to get people to realize, oh, this like, "Oh, I understand it's a serious topic. Oh, it also applies to me."
Yeah, I have had this conversation a lot, and it actually kind of is still in my head. Hard to wrap that a lot of people still don't see the two intertwined. So I think about as consumers, we've seen the lag indicators, right? Where consumerized security functions have been lagging significantly behind business. But you see, as consumers, things like two-factor authentication to log into your banking app, or maybe it's your H&R Block or QuickBooks or something that you're using at home. And all of those things require a level of security that even in the business world, you would think already are doing it today for those smaller businesses that just don't even just it goes over their head or is ignored because it's an inconvenience or the amount of friction would mean that they were not being productive. And sadly, it's because they're just not tying it to being that's something that they have to be responsible for, because in the consumer world, like with banking, they were forced to do it. It wasn't like I didn't go to the bank and say, hey, I was hoping you guys could get me some two-factor authentication. That's
Yeah.
what I want along
I
with
thought
my new checking
everybody's
account.
asking. Everybody
Right,
wants
right,
that,
right.
right?
And no, I don't think anybody ever wants to ask for cybersecurity products and services, because who wants to spend more money? I don't go to State Farm or Progressive and say, hey, I want a more expensive insurance policy for my car. I want more coverage than what I currently have. And really with car insurance, we're at a point now where it's like you basically only have like three real categories, right? Full
Mhm.
coverage, comprehensive, and liability. Like,
Yeah.
and we can all spit it out for any car that's in your household. You could probably tell me exactly what coverage you have on it. But then we go talk about business and cybersecurity insurance. We're like, I think I have a policy. Well, what does it cover?
Yeah.
I don't really know. And then we walk into what we were talking about of like getting somebody to recognize that that's not actually the answer. It's part of a larger, broader strategy to ensure the resilience of your business,
Yeah.
which I believe, and that's what I was, as I was sharing with you earlier, I believe cybersecurity is the byproduct of doing the things that are to run your business correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sometimes it comes across as you go to the dentist, right? Are you flossing like they know if you're flossing or not immediately, but
Yeah. They're
there's a
very
lot of things.
encouraging too.
Yeah, but a lot of times people like they know what, like, yeah, 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 I should do that, I should do more, but then they don't because they don't really understand the ramifications. I know for me with flossing, like getting like having the dentist, like I talk about, you could get gum disease and like,
Sure.
it's expensive, it's disruptive. And when you finally connect the dots and you realize, oh, it's if you don't floss, it's tied to heart disease. So once you start making those connects, like, oh, okay, it's not just
Right.
something that somebody's telling me to do because I have to be
Sure.
a better person. And you talk about resilience. One of the things I like to introduce into conversations is, you know, especially with smaller businesses, and I think they can relate to this. Is like think about, you've been in business 20 years, you're friends with your clients, your employees are like family. You care about them, and I think resilience is. You mentioned that word. I think resilience is so important because I think people can be like, yeah, I would really not want to face the prospect of having a cyber incident and
Yeah.
wow, like we can't pay people, we can't build, we can't service our clients.
Sure.
Like, and then you see it maybe from a different perspective of, oh, I love what we're doing. I love taking care of my clients. I love that I'm giving great jobs to my employees. I love that they
Right.
have an opportunity with us. Then you start thinking, like, okay, that's what you want to protect. And it's
It's
not some like thing you're like somebody, oh well, yeah, I should do that. But it becomes like, oh yeah, I want to keep doing this. That's resilience.
Well, I was thinking about this the other day, to your point. If we go back in time, we really didn't use phrases like in the cybersecurity services stack to my clients, but we did have products that would have been classified as security tools, antivirus, anti-malware software. Those are a couple items that you might have had. Obviously, a firewall was considered a security appliance. But what's interesting is beyond that, a lot of the things that we did were to protect the data, but we didn't say it from a cybersecurity standpoint. We did it from a because the hard drive might fail or the RAID controller might go out, and then
Yeah,
you have to restore from something that we would have likened to a backup. And what's not changed is we still need those things. In fact, I would argue that most clients understand the need to have data backup in place, but they don't necessarily see it in the context of what are the other possible threats to my business that mean that I need something more than just having a backup of the data. I have to ensure that it has the 321, that it's
yeah,
immutable, and then it's the why. And it's like, well, okay, just like you can have flood damage, okay, we can recover from that. You could have, the building's gone, you can recover from that. Um, but when it comes to the data's been changed, but the physicality of everything else is the same, that's tough to be tangible until it actually happens to you because there's never been evidence show up on your device that would make you think otherwise, outside of maybe like you close a Word doc that you thought you had hit save on and it comes back and it's not there. And you almost have to get it down to that level of saying, remember that document, that book you were working on? You're on chapter 7,
yeah,
and your battery died. You didn't realize that you were running on battery on your laptop, and you came back and there was nothing on the document. Um, there's something about that I think we forget from a cybersecurity standpoint. That is all the things in place.
mhm,
Cybersecurity kind of happens. And I think that's a little bit oversimplification. I'm not saying that it just is because you've done these things, but I think when you ask a business, hey, what's your mission statement? What are your goals? How do you treat your clients? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I think no business I've ever talked to says, well, in 5 years, we're hoping to be out of business.
yeah,
And suddenly you're like, okay, well, that wasn't your goal. So that means I have to come up with a strategy to help you. And suddenly you're talking about things that create resiliency in their business without ever having a conversation of like what product or service they need to have embedded into their infrastructure in order to be resilient.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really, it's interesting what you said about the file that you forgot to save or you can't find or whatever. I think people there's like this primal reaction to that, and maybe that's a way of getting people to connect. Okay, well, what if all your files were gone, or what if they were
Right.
changed, or what if your internal documents were, your client communications were threatened to be released to the public? And there's a fine line between, people accuse it's fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And then and when people get afraid, they mentally shut down and they don't
Sure.
listen. But you also need to make a connection because I think that is a challenge with us. You have to make it seem like, oh, that really is something that I need to think about. I recall many years ago, so this is before cybersecurity was like very big in the news, but we typically roll out backup and disaster recovery for, like a real strong backup
Yeah.
to clients. And I remember one client did get hit with a cyber incident. We were able to recover from backup, and like we could not install, like it was kind of a miracle that we could recover them, but we could not install the BCDR fast enough for them. It's like,
Right.
I want this now. I said, Ann, I know you told me a million times to do this, and I just it never clicked. I thought
Yeah.
like, okay, we're on the second floor. I'm not going to get flooded. We're in a brick building. Like
Right.
like it never connected that there was this risk that
Yeah.
he hadn't thought about. And it is a fine line if you just say like, oh, all these awful things can happen to you. People like will shut down. But on the other hand, you have to somehow make that connection.
The,
Like,
the stories have to be realistic and relatable. The guy down the street kind of thing. I remember I was in construction management for a number of years, and we had just built out new business complex. We had moved in, we'd been there for a year. And during the build process, I had been asked things like redundancy, backup generators, and I had proposed the backup generator option, and they went instead with the battery backup that would give us, I think it was about an hour and a half of battery for all of our infrastructure, for our on-prem cloud infrastructure, right? Our own data center inside the office building. And we had a crazy scenario for a power outage. So
yeah.
California, I don't know who it was, but an individual fell asleep at the wheel and veered into a power
Oh
pole,
man.
and it popped the transformer right by our office. No big deal. Those are pretty quick to fix because you can get the redundancy from power from the other side would have. So we had a flicker when that happened. No big deal. Um, and it sounds like a gun going off. It's very loud.
Oh wow.
And then the domino effect happened because she had hit the power pole so hard, that power pole yanked and it took out three transformers in a 2 block radius.
Oh
And the
wow.
third transformer that it hit popped the redundancy of power coming from the other side. So now we're without power, and the way it went is, and you think about when you do like your backup calculations for data recovery and point in time recovery, how much can you lose, how much time can you lose? But it's all based on the calculation of cost per employee per hour, right? So if we're down
Yeah.
for 15 minutes or 5 hours, you have a pretty good understanding, like, hey, at 5 hours, we're losing that's $75,000 or $100,000, and now it's really tangible, like we're losing money.
Yeah.
And we were down, it was after lunch, we were down, and at 2:30, I remember it had been about 2 hours, the business owner came around and basically sent everybody home. Power didn't come back until sometime that evening when they replaced all the transformers and got things
Oh
back
wow.
online. The next morning, I'm in the business owner's office. How quickly can we get generators in place? And I was like, well, I said, I still have the bids. Like, I mean, I literally could go get these revised. And to this day, there's been three additional times where they've clicked over to generator,
Oh wow.
that basically proved how important it was to have that in place, even though the scenario that triggered the FUD trigger, after that incident happened,
Yeah.
they were so quick to do it. The probability of that ever happening was almost zero. They had a better chance of winning the lottery than
Yeah.
someone
Yeah.
taking out three transformers all at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So to your point, it's almost the same thing, in the eyes of the person that it's happening to, but they're completely different scenarios into what potentially can happen going forward. Mine was finite, right? Like there was no, the data is not being exfiltrated because of
Yeah,
power going out. And in your case, even though it was a similar outcome, it could have been so much worse.
yeah, yeah. But I
It's
think
helping
I
them
think
connect the dots.
yeah, and then it's real. Otherwise, it's like I talk about like a training a fire department firefighters who don't believe that fire exists. Like, okay, yeah,
Right.
we'll climb up the building, we'll carry this heavy gear, but yeah, they have to
We
believe
don't
it's
need
real.
water.
Yeah, and we try to like I try to tell folks try to use the phrase like inform like we want you to make an informed decision about things. We're going to tell you, here's what we see as the different risks, and try to relate to, we work with a lot of businesses. We've worked with folks who've had to recover from ransomware attacks, et cetera. We recently got called in to be sort of boots on the ground for a national incident response team. So they can do a lot of what they do with their forensics and everything remotely, but they needed a local team. And we were really honored to be selected to help. And one of the things that just sort of left me thinking is one of the very first things they did is put in the routine security tools that we use all the time.
Sure.
And as I like to tell people, they cost on the order of a latte per month per person. Like
I
we're
like it.
not talking, multi-million dollar budget required. I'm like, oh my gosh, had they had that in place, this particular it's about a 30-person company, had they had that in place before their incident, like it most likely wouldn't it just would have been stopped. It wouldn't have happened the way it played out. Now they were lucky, and I think saving grace is they actually did have the foresight. They signed up for cyber insurance years years back, and now of course they're going to have an issue with renewal. But it's just sort of
Sure.
funny, like so there's sophisticated incident response team basically puts in exactly what we use with all, just
Yeah.
about all of our clients. And it's like, oh, wow, your life would have been a lot better had you just had that in before.
So having that conversation client facing is really interesting because having that same conversation to an MSP, it's I've got the tools, right? I've got the, to your point, it's these five, six, 10 things, and it's a
Yeah,
latte a month, or maybe it's two lattes a month,
yeah,
but it's somewhere between $5 and $10 is a pretty normal average. I was talking to a vendor the other day that has about six or seven products in their stack. It's all part of one platform, and it comes out to about $35 to $40 a month per user. And I was talking about it with an MSP, and they're like, well, we could never get our clients to pay for that. I said, okay. I said, this is just a hunch. How much time do your employees spend looking at each of the products and services that you currently have for each of your clients when things happen? And we kind of walked through that a little bit. And I said, can you imagine if every time you had to go check a different pane of glass, you could subtract that from
yeah,
paying them? Like you didn't have to pay them those dollars. And they're like, well, I couldn't take that away from them. I'm like, I understand. But one of the things I see a lot in the MSP space when we're talking about cybersecurity and that service offering is how to get lower pricing, lower cost of product services because of not being able to get clients to pay for it. And I finally just said, I think we're looking at this through largely the wrong lens. It's how do I scale the security services that they have to have, we all have to have, without having to continuously increase my FTEs to manage that new infrastructure. And we're finally at a tipping point where there's vendors that have single pane of glass with a, a uniquely built ecosystem. It's not like we've tried to take Legos from different toys
yeah,
and put them into
yeah,
the same one. Um, they're all different colors, right? Like they don't match,
yeah,
and suddenly they're seeing like, hey, my overhead cost is actually going down while my product services cost might be going up, but it's sort of maintaining a balance. And I think that's one of the things that's hard when talking to clients because they hear that I need these things, which immediately says now my cost is going to go up no matter what. And I think that's the thing that we have to overcome in that education process is cybersecurity doesn't equal dollars spent.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm remembering a conversation with a local uh, business owner in the area. I said, hey, we need to protect against this particular risk. Here's, things that are being, seen in the wild in terms of cybersecurity risk. And the response was, okay, well, if we add that protection, what are we going to take away to like account for
Yes,
the cost? It's like, well, it doesn't really work like that because the whole cybersecurity cat and mouse game. Now, in
yeah,
terms of we do have to be conscious of cost of ownership of
sure,
lots of different panes of glass and how are we managing them because our cost may be higher
sure,
and we don't even know it in terms of the tool. So there's a lot from our end and a lot of expertise and that's something sometimes I wish our clients would see that more of the times like that we get together and we're evaluating tools and we're looking
yeah,
in deep and we're looking triangulating from different angles and stuff. Uh, some of them I think are very conscious of the level of care that we put
sure.
into our clients and
It's
I
it's like
think
upgrading a
some don't
car,
see it.
right? Like I could buy a car that gets me from point A to point B, but if I have to drive a lot in that car, I might spend more money to have a higher quality car just because of the drive experience that I want to have. And yeah, it costs more money.
Yeah. Yeah. And then getting tuned into what are the risks and maybe making it connect a little closer. I'm thinking of another client where part of their network was down for like 15 minutes and they went absolutely crazy. Like I couldn't I had to hold the phone away from my ear listening to this is devastating. And they're the ones uh they didn't want to put in MFA for their 365. They now have it, but
Sure.
and like it's like okay, wait a second. So let me go through this. Like 99.99% of security incidents on 365 happen on accounts that don't have MFA, and you don't want to
Right.
do it. So you want to put yourself in that high risk pool for like all kinds of super bad stuff. Okay, but if part of your network is down for 15 minutes, it's unacceptable and you can't
Sure.
possibly function and this is costing us so much money like do you realize
Yeah.
like
I don't know if you've ever done like redundant network infrastructure where it's like redundant firewalls, redundant core switches. I've done a couple of them. They're very hard to sell because
mhm,
you are more than doubling in some cases the cost of infrastructure, and
yeah,
it it's crazy. And the thing that's troubling because of what the why is because it's the thing that enables me to get into my QuickBooks. It's the thing that enables me to, make a phone call.
yeah,
It's not the actual what the products that they're paying for are not the actual tools that they're using in the context of it. I had this conversation not too long ago. It was with regards to QuickBooks.
yeah,
They had made the shift to QuickBooks Online, and they were frustrated because the cost just seems to keep going up. And I pointed out to them, I'm like, but remember when you went to QuickBooks Online, you were super concerned because they didn't have the reporting functionality that you had in your on-prem QuickBooks. And the way you went about doing tax prep was very convoluted, and you wanted to make sure that the online version didn't even support that yet, so you still had to do the exports. I said, but look at what your QuickBooks Online does now. Like
yeah,
it's able to pull in if you don't have someone to do your taxes, you can actually have it help you find someone to do your
yeah,
taxes, and you actually never have to interact with anyone, and it's all done.
yeah,
Payroll and all of these things that you used to have to manually do or pay somebody to do for you are now all being done through the monthly service subscription that you're paying for. And I would argue, by and large, what you started out at is somewhere around $50 to $75 to what you're paying now at $125 to $150 a month. That change in cost, you can't pay somebody to do that, and you were paying somebody to do that. So
yeah,
like we're doing the same thing for them where it's like, yeah, costs are going to go up. Cost of business has gone up. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but tariffs tend to not be like beneficial when you're trying to buy products and services that have an increasing cost as a result of something that we have no control over.
yeah, yeah.
But it's
It's
still your
interesting.
fault.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting you bring up the efficiency. Like sometimes people don't calculate everything into the equation. Like these days
Right.
you can pick up your phone and you can get a car to magically appear and take you somewhere.
Yep.
Like there
Yeah,
are just so many benefits of technology. So I'm a total technology enthusiast. So that's one of the things that's like a hot button for me when people like I really want people to understand like look so when you go to QuickBooks Online, yeah, but you have to it costs more than you maybe think it should, but it's
sure.
think of how much labor was involved in the things that you used to do have to do in the past or when you run on premise and certain maybe you have a lag depending on what remote tool you use to get in there, like all these different things that are put in
Right,
place. Or you look at a movie from the 1950s in a New York skyscraper and there's a whole room full of people just typing. Yeah,
right.
things have changed. There's so many efficiencies that technology brings, but um yeah, it's yeah, it goes into the broader picture of what's somebody's relationship with technology. Do they see it as this amazing thing that makes our lives better and more efficient and we're not out in the field toiling for 12 hours a day
Right,
like a
right.
hundred
We have
years
a
ago.
tractor that does it for us. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's talk about how expensive the tractor is that does that, right? Like these are
yeah,
these are 700 to $1 million devices that
yeah,
roam our fields with maybe a driver, maybe not a driver, but if it even has a person in it, it's still
yeah,
being driven by GPS, right? Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, there's a lot. So that's one of the things. Like I always wish that people could love technology as much. I'm a total technology enthusiast, technology optimist, and I would at my core really want everybody to see the world the same way. And
yeah,
yeah, this is worth protecting. And don't wait until you have some disaster and you have the worst professional experience of your life while you
right,
panic.
right.
And your employees don't know if they're going to have jobs, and you don't know if you're going to, even with insurance, if you're going to have enough cash to cover things up front while you wait to be paid in a return. Like it, yeah, that piece is painful.
Yeah. It's so in tying this all back around, one of the things I think is really important to let the audience know, which is largely servicing clients, is in many cases, the solve of the risk problem as it pertains to implementing some sort of cybersecurity tool or service can be done for little to no cost in most cases. Going back to what you said about 365, MFA being turned on is not an additional cost. It's not like Microsoft says we charge
Yeah,
extra for
it's
MFA.
free.
It's free. I also seen where it's like the overall spend on some of these products and services has nothing to do with the actual security component, which is still tied back to the person. I'm not as I shouldn't say this on the show, but I believe our current implementation of security awareness and skills training is a total checkbox disaster because we're not training for the actual reality. We're training for the what we've either already seen or a hypothetical that we're actually putting our employees and clients into the position of like, all right, this one will make them fail. This one, I'll get them with this one, and then
Yeah,
I can educate them on why that's bad, to the
yeah. The
point that
the
they become
gotcha
desensitized.
approach.
Yeah,
Yeah, a
the
gotcha
gotcha
approach
approach.
is terrible.
Well, when you look at the Verizon breach report and 96% or whatever it was can be tied back to the human element of the human failure, then you're like, well, what are we really doing when we sell on product and services? It's like, okay, well, we've got to fix the education side so they better understand that no, this isn't about I just put this tool in and then bad things don't happen. And we talk about this a lot with the trust mark. Everybody wants a client-facing profile. And I'm like, that's not going to come from the trust mark because the trust mark was built intentionally for the ITSP, not the
Hmm.
ITSP's clients. But everybody that has made it through the trust mark so far that I've seen has said, these are now the things that we do automatically when we onboard a new client. It's tied into different safeguards that are in the
Yeah,
trust mark. And then they go, and these are the things that we do as an in addition to as a project or it's a client, it's a partner shared responsibility matrix for that, whatever's being added. And then the third one is my clients are responsible for these things, not me, the MSP. And I can't take on this responsibility for them. I can't decide how their acceptable use policy should look and what should go in it. I can give
yeah,
them some suggestions, I can give them some ideas, but ultimately they have to take full ownership of that.
yeah,
I think that's where we have the biggest challenge is getting taking the time to focus on how I can get them to understand that their risks are theirs, but their risks can impact my risk. And when
Yeah.
they understand that we're in this together, it's not a I sell you stuff, you buy stuff. It changes. I wish we still had the when you go to the gas station and you go ding ding and someone comes out and not only
Yeah.
do they pump the gas, but they clean the windshields. I think bug splatter has changed that because you want, the workman's comp because of how hard it is to get the bugs off the windshield. But
Yeah.
I miss that relationship, right? Because that was an opportunity where for a lot of people who are not comfortable making the changes to their cars, they would pop your hood, they would check your oil level, they would check your windshield washer fluid level,
Yeah.
and let you know, like, hey, you need a quart of oil, and you maybe want to get an oil change or get your engine checked soon. You're like, okay, great. But we don't do that anymore. Now it's entirely up to us to go, check engine light just came on. I better get that checked soon, like in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I bring we have a Honda dealer right next to our office, so I bring my car over there for any oil change and anything.
Sure.
And they do run the whole checklist too. And you could look at it like, oh, you could be like super cynical about, um, oh, they're just trying to upsell you this, that, and yes, they're a business, but
Sure.
it really is legit. Like, I need to know if my tire tread's okay. I'm not examining my tires every day,
Yeah.
so
You don't
I'm
have a
I,
nickel in your pocket anyway.
yeah. So yeah, the so I think when it's done right, like I really appreciate that, and I think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, be careful. They're going to recommend it. Like they're not recommending stuff that it's evidence based, and I think you can do
Sure.
it right in an ethical way, and point things out that we would maybe see that the like you may not be popping open your trunk, your not your trunk. See, that's how much I know.
Yeah.
Your hood to
Yeah.
to look at your oil level every
Hey, maybe
day.
it's a Tesla.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. Um, yeah, and then we're doing a webinar in 2 weeks about security awareness training because what we find is, yeah, that whole if you check a box and you develop some program to check a box, it's not doing anything for you. You got to participate,
Right.
and
Right.
the different ways of encouraging that, like maybe make it like gamify it, but um, it, and then you look at it from our perspective because, gee, when that client does click on the link that they weren't supposed to, then like, well, how did this happen? And there's a whole it's a very time consuming process to try to figure out exactly what happened. um you know how did it happen, what happened, was it more than we think happened, etc. And then um it's like, gee, you know what, both of our lives would be so much easier if they just didn't click on that thing that's
Right.
was kind of obvious that they shouldn't have, because things are designed to get through. Like we have email security filters, there's a lot of protections in place, but at that last moment, like you said, it's up to that person sitting in front of the computer to make a decision. And Verizon, 96% of it's human error. It's Are they going to make the right decision?
Yeah, for sure. We are out of time.
Oh, okay.
And is there anything else you would like to share with the audience that might help them in their conversations around taking cybersecurity seriously?
Well, one thing I've been working, so we're working on the trust mark, and we're actually making progress. I do want to get our assessment/audit done soon within the next couple of months. But I think that taking it seriously, because you do really need to signal to your clients. You mentioned that earlier of a person not like, hey, I'm not going to go to a movie alone. Like, I'm not going to do this until all my clients agree to do it.
Yeah.
Like, you really have to do it. And I find now smaller machine shops are starting to ask us about CMMC. And then we can tell the story of like, well, here's what we do, here's how we're working on our policies, uh, to do an assessment. So I'd encourage folks to really take a look at the trust mark, and then also have patience when you talk to
Sure.
clients about cybersecurity. Like, one conversation
Patience.
is not going to change somebody's mindset. And I think it's
Right.
taken what, 30 plus years for people from going from 10% seatbelt usage to over 90% seatbelt
Right.
usage in cars. I mean, it's provided, it's in the car, it's there by law. And years ago, people didn't use that seatbelt.
Well, and
And
now there's the new argument.
earlier,
The new argument is because of how many airbags are in your car, is the seatbelt a detriment or still a
oh,
necessity? And I
all
and
right,
I think
that's
it's an interesting You go down the rabbit hole with that one. Real quick, I'll give a tip to everybody listening that this has come up recently. If you're going through the trust mark and you by chance use Copilot for Business, you can create a notebook and put your files in there for the trust mark. So if you put the spreadsheet that has all the safeguards and the prompts in there, and then as you're working through and you create the policies and you create the attach the evidence and you throw that in there, then anytime you ask Copilot, hey, can you give this back to me? It gives you a detailed response without you having to search through your spreadsheet.
Oh, wow. Wow. So we
So
flipped this
that
all back to AI. That's cool.
Yeah, we did. And here's the interesting part. It's not just AI. This is AI that has a RAG or set of you've basically have fed it what you want it to look at and only what you want it to look at to give you the answers back. And we did the test on the Tech Degenerate Cyber Success call yesterday, and John Dobbin and I both in separate Copilot having fed the same documents in. He had some additional ones than I did, but like we basically got the exact same answers back with
Oh,
a
wow.
detailed how to work through to provide the evidence that an assessor would be looking for. So don't get stuck. Reach out, let us know, because there's
Yeah.
definitely some stuff coming down that will really help people as they're going through this process. For those of you listening, this has been an episode of MSP 1337. Thanks and have a great week.